This is an interview with Zara Gween for the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor Oral History Project titled Women at Work. The interview is being conducted at the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor, known as the Steel Museum, on May 5th, 2023. My name's Nicole Marino. Zara, where did you and your family live when you were growing up?
Let's see, Canton, Ohio. Yeah, I grew up kind of on the streets of Canton, Ohio, so we were poor, like poor. Then my grandparents were in Carrollton, Ohio. I did a lot of farm work for them. So, yeah, they kind of raised me more than my parents did. So, yeah, that was a rough childhood.
Okay. What did your parents do for a living? And
let's see. I'm just going to be transparent. My mom was pretty much just collected welfare.
Okay.
So, and my dad was a respiratory therapist till he got fired for sneaking drugs out. So, yeah, we kind of ended up on the streets a little bit. Mm-hmm. And growing up, I looked at my parents and I knew that I didn't want to be like them. I knew I didn't want to be deadbeats.
Sure.
So my grandparents took me and my brother in, and we learned how to do farm work and everything. That's where I learned how to really use my hands, use tools, and I got pride there. You know, I said, this is what I want to be. I looked up to my grandfather. He was a steel worker in Timken. So I really looked up to my grandfather and just kind of tried to fill his shoes.
Yeah. Where'd you go to high school?
Sandy Valley. For a time, we lived in, Magnolia, Ohio.
Okay. And so what did you do after high school?
Well, I went to the Army for a little bit, for a very little bit. After high school, I worked a plethora of crap jobs, probably plastic plants, farm jobs, chicken factories, anything to make a couple bucks. My daughter, she was born pretty young. I was pretty young, like 21. And her dad wasn't the best, and I needed to make money. So I did what I could.
Sure.
Until I found, the iron workers.
Until you find that, yeah. And I will ask you in depth about that too. Yeah, because that is what I want to learn. I want to hear your story. So everything you're telling me is exactly what we want to learn about you. Are you married?
I'm divorced, but recently engaged. So happily.
Very good. Yes.
Very happily.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then you do have children. How many children do you have?
One daughter.
One daughter. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're fresh out of school and you're young and you're jumping from job to job as many young people do.
Yeah, correct.
How did you find your way to the union then?
It's an interest. I'm working this plastic plant, Sterilite, I'm just plugging away at it, hoping to get hired. I was a temporary employee. And then my brother was in the iron workers. And he said, come join the iron workers. And I'm like, okay. So I signed up. And they didn't have much work then. I mean, I think that was 2010, 2009. So I said, bye, we'll see you, until you have work. I need to make money. Next year comes around and I sign up and I get approved to join the apprenticeship. Oh. And that's how I started,
What year was that? Do you remember?
2011, I think. I was a pre-apprentice for a while, but I can't remember if it was a couple months or 6 months or whatever.
Okay. And then and you kind of learned about that from your brother and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And that seemed like you were, from what you said about your granddad, that seemed like a path that was going to appeal to you from the beginning, maybe?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be completely transparent, I had an attitude problem. Mm-hmm. So, growing up in the way that I did, I kind of, had this attitude where I was better than everybody. I didn't really care. I just wanted to work hard. And the iron workers seemed like my attitude problem was actually a positive investment, because a lot of people that have attitude problems work very hard. We're really good people. We just have a behavioral issue. So, I put all of this into my work. Mm-hmm. So, and I didn't get fired, which was a good thing.
So when you first joined on, you became an apprentice first, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was pre-apprentice because they weren't really taking anybody just yet, I guess on paperwork. And then when they take people in, then you sign up for the actual apprenticeship, and you do 4 years. They train you, and then you're a journeyman after that.
So when you were a pre-apprentice, what kind of, like when they would call you to go out, what kind of work were you doing then?
The first job I went on to, I remember very clearly. I was working at Whitaker Yard tying up caissons. It was a rebar job, and we tied all day long. By the time I got home to do dishes, my hands were bleeding. I kept them in gloves so nobody would see.
Yeah.
By the time the third day rolled around, I finally was like, I need some Band-Aids or something. So I pulled my glove off and I said, do you have any Band-Aids? And they thought I needed to go to the hospital because it was so bad. It literally looked like I took a blowtorch to my hand and just melted the skin off my right hand. So, but, and it was a lot of years, but that wasn't that bad. That was just all the blisters from tying and working with your hands.
Sure.
So, but doing dishes that night sucked.
Oh, I bet. Yipes. So, what kind of, did they give you any level of training when you were a pre-apprentice?
I came in on my own, and the coordinator, Joe Olios of Canton Local 550, was pretty good to me. And he said, here, this is rebar, start practicing on your tying, snap ties, saddle ties. And that really got me ready to go. So, yeah, they gave me a little bit.
Okay.
But it was basically, I showed up and, they showed me a few things.
Mm-hmm,
so.
mm-hmm. And then once you entered your apprenticeship, how did that, I don't really know it.
It's classroom time. Yeah,
okay.
So you get like books, you get like math and stuff, and you work classroom time, then there's hands-on time. So, I mean, you'll go build structural, or you'll torch, or there's a lot of welding. They'll train you how to do that. You don't have to know anything whatsoever.
Okay.
You just have to have the heart to show up and try.
To learn, yeah. And so what was your first position, or as an apprentice, you're still working that whole time,
right?
though,
Right. Yeah, you're an apprentice and you're paid working. I was a rod buster for a lot of years. So I wasn't very good at welding.
Okay.
It wasn't my forte. I really wanted to work, so I've done some structural, but for the most part, my main position was rebar, doing bridge work.
And are you still doing that now too?
I get off. Yeah, I kind of do the structural stuff now.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to do structural. It's not as harsh on your body. I'm getting older.
Yeah.
It's higher up in the air.
Well, I can imagine. It sounds like a pretty physically demanding line of work for the most part.
Very. Yeah. You have to push your body to the limits. We don't have a lot of upper body strength, but doing it every day, day in and day out, you gain that. So, and I just kind of learned how to use my body in ways that worked for me.
Yeah, that actually, based on what you just said, that's what it made me think of, is like, do you just approach it slightly differently? Do you just lift with your knees like you're recommended to, whereas a man might, like a big dude?
I watched a lot of guys' backs get destroyed.
Yeah.
Because they would bend over and just pick it up with their back, because they're always hunched over, For me, since I was lower to the ground, I would just get up underneath of it and push it up. Kind of like, I don't know, like cross training.
Yeah, so you find the method that works for you, and that's what you do.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, that makes good sense. So have you, so as part of the union, have you had to bid on any other jobs to change positions?
No, when you're a journeyman, you can go wherever you want to. There's a hotline where I just found, it's called the Gordie Howe Bridge. Yeah, and it's an international bridge from Detroit to Canada. And it just comes up on the ironworker hotline. If you're a journeyman, you can go all over the country and work whatever job you want to.
And you can just pick whatever you want.
Oh yeah, this is going to be an amazing job. So, especially when there's like $500 per diem. Definitely.
Yeah.
When you're an apprentice, you don't get to really, you go through the hall on that. There's a business agent, and the hall sends you to jobs, and hopefully he can get you kind of well-rounded to be an ironworker, welding, rebar, structural, different types.
Okay. Yeah. And they give you opportunity, and you can choose to train to any new position you want to learn about.
Yeah. I can choose now as a journeyman whether I want to do rebar or I want to do structural or I want to go on a shutdown or anything like that. So.
Okay. So currently you're doing some structural work. Mm-hmm. For example, what's a typical day like for you now? And
for me now in structural, generally you get a partner, which is different from rebar because you're kind of either on your own. Sometimes you get a carrying partner, and you kind of know the steps for rebar, and you just get told tie this or tie that or whatever. But with structural, it's different. It's a lot more teamwork. The guys are a little more team. One guy will be on another side of a beam, the other guy will be on the other side, and you have to kind of know each other. You work with a crane and you signal it in, throw a couple bolts in it, and then another guy comes in and either bolts up and details, or you might be bolting up and detailing. Mm-hmm. So, and it could just cutting things, fabbing things. Generally, you get together in the morning, have like a little meeting, and whoever's good at whatever kind of goes out and does it. So okay. It's a nice machine.
And it seems like teamwork seems integral then to that. It has to happen. In the
structural field, yes. Yeah. I've noticed the rebar guys are kind of like always at each other's throats, but the structural guys are just very good guys. Very good guys.
What kind of challenges do you typically face on that job?
Heights, wind, dew in the morning.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Egos. Some people think that they're like way better at things, and they're not. They're really not, so being discredited, I guess, as a female, immediately they look at you and they're like, oh, she's little, they don't have the right gloves. Having extra smalls is extremely rare.
Oh yeah.
Harnesses that fit are extremely rare. A lot of times they won't let you operate like the man lift or something because men are better drivers. So that's a thing, You can see how a piece goes together and they don't want to listen to you because as far as I'm concerned, very few think outside of the box. And when you're up in the air and you need to figure out how a piece gets in, sometimes it's not all about banging and hitting and thrashing. It's a little bit different, so.
A little bit of finesse.
Yeah, use your tools different. So sometimes you might just pry a little here, push a little there, twist a little here, and it goes right in. You don't have to beat everything to death.
Yeah. So, like to that end, when you're thinking about like the differences in approach to some of these challenging issues, mm-hmm. like between you and a guy or... Well, actually, let me ask you this. So how your teams are small. You're on teams, but they're relatively small.
Yeah, we're normally paired up in partners. Uh-huh. Mostly two or three.
Are you mostly working with men then?
Oh, yeah. Every once in a while, I've seen women out. There's more women in structural than rebar, but the last couple years, I've worked with a few women, which is really weird because the last 10 years of my whole career was all men. All men. Yeah. Like the first couple of years, I'd go out on a bridge and I was literally screamed at. That nobody wanted to work with me. It was bad to work with a female. She wouldn't be able to keep up. I refused to work with her, blah, blah, blah. I just kind of asked him who broke his heart.
Do you think when they come in with an attitude towards you because you're a woman, because it's from somewhere else in their life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm intelligent enough to know that, and they hate that too. I just he just paused when I asked him that. I said, what's the matter with you? Somebody break your heart? You're going to take it out on me? He just didn't know what to say.
Mm-hmm. And so do you run into a lot of flack from them?
Oh, yeah, but I give it back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, is it like good-hearted, or is some of it's good and some of it's real crappy?
Some of it's real backstabby. My second husband, Joe Willis, we did rebar together, and he was backstabby. That was really nasty. I mean, they'll act like they're friends to your face, and then behind your back, they're like, she doesn't work, she can't keep up. They'll just lie about you. And then when you do, and make them look bad, they don't know what to do about it. But you just gotta focus on the work.
Right.
you know, and it's really hard when they start getting in your head.
Yeah.
You know, that's the hardest part. If you can do the work, they will try to get in your head.
Are they like that with each other too?
Oh yeah, not as much. I mean, they'll kind of group up with each other. You know, birds of a feather flock together. Mm-hmm. But as far as being a woman out there, nobody's gonna have your back. No, because you're a female.
Yeah.
Even if they're in the wrong, they're gonna have his back over your back any day of the week. And you just have to understand that that's the way it's gonna go. It used to piss me off, you know. Even when he was my husband, he didn't have my back. So it just gets, you realize that you are the outsider and you'll forever be the outsider. With the structural guys, it's not as bad, but with the rebar guys, oh, it was bad. It was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair. And you didn't get to work with that many women in there, so does the same hold true for other women that you've worked with?
Not as much. There are some that'll get kind of what I call catty, but for the most part, we look out for each other.
Sure.
There was a really good female in the 550, and we talked, and she went through the same problem. She got in before me, like 20 years before me, and she had to physically fight. Not that I haven't physically fought, because I did. I punched a guy in the dick once. No, I did. He come up to me, why don't you suck my... Oh, man, I cracked him right in his dick. But, no, yeah, we've had to physically fight, so, I mean, it doesn't end there. I've had people, you know, mess with my stuff, but that happens in an apprenticeship, so everybody gets that.
A little bit of hazing then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It kind of divides you. It figures out who's going to stay and who's going to go. Like, if you can put up with this, it does kind of, like, build you into an iron worker, you know, because it's not easy out there. And if you can deal with the hazing and the environments and the work, and you can deal with all that, and you make it 4 years, you're pretty good. They kind of leave you alone.
And you're already in a kind of dangerous situation anyway, right? Because safety issues are important in that workplace. And this isn't on my list of questions, but like, have you ever experienced it where they're more into their own head than they are interested in making sure it's a safe environment for themselves and you?
Yeah, the superintendents can get all kinds of crazy. Oh, I got to get this big push job, blah, blah, blah. I've been to where I was into my own head more. I've been in situations that were just completely uncalled for because they just kind of treated me disposable, but sometimes I didn't know if I was coming home.
It's not a very safe job.
No, I mean, you get used to a lot of the different things. I mean, it's way safer than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there were no harnesses. We didn't have tie-offs. We didn't have any of that. I climbed walls, and, you know, my head was inches from traffic. My hard hat's been blown off from traffic, 90-some miles an hour. I've been up in the air with nothing on. You know, there's things that you have to do to get the job done, you know, but it's way better than what it used to. I've been under 20 plus tons of rebar shifting over my head. I thought it was gonna crush me. And we were hurrying up making ties around these standees that were only like 4-bar, holding up. They were like 12-foot standees, 4-bar, and they're just crushing as we're just hurrying up tying tie wire around them to keep them from bellying out and falling down. That was before they had like standee ties and things like that, but that was very dangerous. Guys died on that job though. That was at Timken. The crane failed.
And the crane failed and guys died. Did they get?
The brake cut loose on the crane, and they come down.
Oh God.
And they killed a couple guys in the basket. Well, they were pushing that job. And I felt bad for the operator. The operator was a hell of an operator, but he took it. I don't think he's no longer an operator, but they were pushing that job 24/7, 7 days a week, nights and days, and they never maintenance that crane. That's the truth.
So that's just negligence.
It is negligence, but when you have big money, this is the other problem in it. When you have big money and you push a job, that's what you get. It's not as bad anymore, but back in the day, they push until failure.
So, and was that coming from the way ups or foreman or
it was the higher ups,
and then it trickled down.
Yeah.
How was administration, like how does administration treat workers in other cases? Because I appreciate that particular
I'll
isn't
be transparent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know not every situation's the same, but
No, there's been a few instances where death has occurred. I mean, the one job I was on, another guy died in the steel mill. We didn't know. I mean, it was a few feet from us. Nobody knew. But the question, how higher ups treat us, like we're disposable.
Right.
You
Just
know?
blanket everybody.
We're dirty. I think a lot of it's because they're afraid that they can't do what we can do. You know, we're heroes. Let's just be honest. We are America's heroes. And, you know, they write what they want built, but we build it.
Make it happen, yeah. So they don't single you out any worse than anybody else because they just kind of treat everybody pretty poorly.
Livestock with like tools.
Yeah, livestock with tools.
Yeah,
that's
we
good.
are. We're just like a step above cattle.
Wow.
Like little monkeys out there.
Yeah. All right, so you talked about some of this. What kind of hours and shifts do you work? Do you ever do rotating shift, or you?
I normally have done days. You know, bridge work will be like 8 hours unless goes into some OT. You know, on the bigger jobs you're looking at like a lot anymore, like 12 hours. Catching some Saturdays, you know, which is good for the pension and annuity funds. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're working a lot of hours anymore.
Did you ever go through any strikes while you were on the job?
No, not on a job. We had a couple near strikes, but we've never really had any picket line strike things or anything like that. Everything's been pretty good.
Okay. Have you ever had to report any grievances for yourself or for someone else?
Oh yeah, Going through the apprenticeship, I almost didn't make it because of the sexual harassment. And I'm probably not even supposed to say this because the 550 got in a big butt hurt over it. But I resigned in my apprenticeship because of the unfair treatment and everything, and I couldn't just kind of like snitch on this person or that person because it was like the whole unit, you know. And so I filed for the international. I resigned being in an apprenticeship, and they wondered why, because it was like a couple months before I graduated. And they investigated it, and about a year later I found out I did get my book. So they did grant me my book because they had recordings of me. You know, the whole classroom was just fighting and carrying on, and a bunch of drunk iron workers, you know, and me punching this guy in the dick, you know. And they wanted to know what was going on. I'm like, dude, this is a riot, dude. We're not learning anything. So I did get my book,
And that was from the previous.
That was from
union
local,
where you were, and then
they were huge dicks to me. And they told me straight up they didn't want me part of it, but they had to let so many women in. He told me straight to my face. Bill Shears told me straight to my face. I said, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
It's your opinion.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere.
And then you found a better spot for yourself.
Yeah, I did. I moved into 207. They've treated me pretty good.
Good. What do you like the most about your job?
Being outside. I like the challenge. I do enjoy the stress. You know, growing up on the way that I did, it was pretty stressful. So I like the challenge. You know, I like hitting stuff. I do. I mean, I do use my body in different ways, but, you know, knowing when it's time to just wail on something and you can prove to the guys that you can hit it just as hard, if not harder, they're like, whoa. You know, I love the physical. I love the physical work of it. Yeah, I love picking up heavy things and throwing it on my shoulder and being part of a team. I love seeing a job get done. I like seeing people go home. You know, we all suffer together. Yeah.
And you accomplish something while you're there, and you make things.
Yeah, we build them. If it wasn't for us, none of this building wouldn't even exist.
Yes, that is true on multiple levels,
yes.
In fact. What do you like the least about your job?
The cold. The cold. I can deal with the heat. But sometimes when it gets like negative 14 wind, it will bite through you.
All right. I think you've done. On your job sites, is there always a proper facility for you to use, like a restroom or a locker room or a shower room or whatever, something that
Not always.
Is appropriate?
Not always. I mean, working the bridges, the porta-johns get so bad.
Yeah.
It's better now, but when I started, this is no joke, I'll tell you a story. I was working down in West Virginia on this job, and there were no porta-johns, and I told everybody, I was the foreman, I said, look, dude, we don't have any porta-johns, I am so sorry. And this guy had to take a shit, and I'm just gonna talk it. He went inside this road barrel, pulled his pants down, took a crap right in this road barrel. I can't even believe you right now. I'm like, look, dude, I don't care where you take a crap. I don't care what it smells like or looks like. We got to get this job done. So I'm like 20 minutes back to work. So yeah, no, a lot of times it's very filthy. It's very dirty. And a lot of women are like, we need better facilities. And I'm like, no, we use exactly what everybody else uses on the job.
Yeah.
And that it is what it is.
Okay.
It sucks.
How did your working life affect your husband when you were married?
He was jealous because I was better than him.
Because you said he was an iron worker too.
Yeah.
What did he do?
He was a rod buster.
The
too.
same thing.
Yeah. He treated people like shit. I didn't agree with that. And you treat, every man is a man. Treat him like, he just belittled people to try to get a little more out of them. I didn't agree with that at all. So, I mean, I think I was way more physically fit than him as far as that goes. So my abilities were beyond his, and that made him jealous. And we worked together a lot and probably got on each other's nerves. But when I started, I didn't have a husband or anything. It was harder on my kid.
Yeah, how was it? What kind of effects did it have on your kids?
A lot.
Yeah.
Now, looking back at it, I've spent a lot of nights crying because I spent 90-some% of my energy was all at work. By the time I came home, I was exhausted. Yeah. I mean, she's just a little girl, and I just want to go play with her or cook dinner. You don't come home and cook dinner after rebar.
Right, right.
And, she just wanted somebody. It affected her at school. Because everybody's like, oh, your mom's an iron worker. And, I got my head shaved and everybody treated her different, They didn't pick on her so much, but, the school thought, she was being mistreated. And I felt like I neglected her. I felt like I didn't give her, the love that I wanted to because I was so exhausted. But she never went without clothes or food or anything. I just, I brought home the bread. I brought home the bacon, but I couldn't bring home anything else. There was nothing left to give.
Not enough energy.
No.
Yeah. And so for childcare, how did you manage that while you were working and she's...
I had to pay a babysitter. And, I think I started iron working when she was probably about 3 or 4 months old. Maybe a little older than that. I can't remember. It's been a while. She's 18 now, so maybe 6 months. She was still in diapers,
Yeah.
And I cried all the time. They didn't give her the best care, and it's a child care facility. I mean, and she kind of grew up feeling a little abandoned and neglected, and there was nothing I could do about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. From that same aspect of caretaking, did you ever find yourself in the position where you're working and and you have your daughter, and then you also have to take care of someone else in your family, like a parent or a grandparent or somebody else who also needs you?
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me about that?
Yeah, I mean, during that, my grandfather ended up passing away. He got sick. And my brother I'll give him that. My brother did do a lot because he lived in Carrollton. Took care of my grandfather a lot on that. There were times when my daughter would get sick and this is what is nice about the iron workers. They kind of understand if you have to leave. Like, brick and mortar, whatever, you got 2 days a year you can miss and you're screwed, But they do understand family. There's no other job I've ever worked other than a trade job that understands family, because we give what we give, and if we have to be there, push comes to shove, fuck this job. But she broke her collarbone, and I had to take her to like therapy or the doctor, and the job was right along the way. And I know one time it was like a 10-hour job, and I'm like, look, I can't drive all the way home. so I gave her the keys to, be warm in the car, and she had stuff to eat and stuff like that. But she spent a good 8 hours in the car. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't drive all the way home. It's like an hour, I got to make some hours. And she, I felt bad for that, but she understood.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard way of life.
It is. Yeah, it sounds like you were making a lot of hard trade-offs.
Yeah.
That
were necessary.
Yeah. So speaking of your grandfather and your grandmother, do you want to talk about working on the farm at all?
Oh man, I love the farm. I miss the farm every day, dude. We had horses. I think at one time he had 60 some head of horses.
Wow.
Oh yeah, paints. He started out with Arabians. So I really learned work ethic. Oh my gosh, I was better than my brother there too. I would make sure that when he gave me a job, I did that job to my best ability every time, even if it took me a little bit longer, because I knew next time I'd learn a shortcut, So making hay. I mean, I got the same blisters, not as bad, but making hay, being in the field. My grandparents, this is funny. They put me in the kitchen with my grandma, and I love my grandma. She's so awesome. But, wanted me to cook the dinners and all this and whatever. And I said, Grandma, I can't take it anymore. I got to be in the field.
Yeah.
This is not me. And she's like, okay, well, I'll talk to your grandpa. And we're talking old school Southern.
Sure.
My grandma barely started wearing pants. She wore dresses, So finally my grandpa said, okay, if she won't stop bitching about it. So they brought me out, and I worked. And worked. And he did not, what's the word for it? I never went back in the kitchen again.
He never regretted having you out there.
Regretted it. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm telling you what, I loved working and proving, to my grandfather that women aren't just, made for the kitchen.
Yep. Good. All right, so back to your current situation. You have a pension plan now, right?
Oh yeah, thank God.
Good. Did you ever have to work anywhere where there was a buyout or anything while you were there?
I can't remember. No.
Okay.
None of that.
Did you ever work anywhere where the company closed while you were there?
No.
Okay.
I can't remember. I mean, there were some jobs that didn't go completely through. I'm trying to think. It was like a toll booth job. No, it was trying to think. Turnpike. They were doing this big project on the turnpikes to build them up and stuff, and for whatever reason, they just kind of lost funding for a while. That's about it.
So were you off then while they were figuring out what they were
for
doing,
a
or did
little
they
bit,
just
but
send you to
I
next?
was apprentice then, and you call your hall, the BA, and they just send you to.
And they send you somewhere else. So you don't have to deal with trying to find replacement work for yourself. You can keep working.
No, you do. Sometimes you do. I mean, I can choose, but sometimes the hall just doesn't have anything, and you go to the hotline, and there's lots of work there.
Okay. So you told me a couple of experiences you had with accidents, and then you mentioned something about some violence with somebody directly coming at you. Do you want to tell me that whole story, or?
Oh, it was kind of short, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? People, we razz each other and everything, and I'll tell you, one day I just had enough. They're acting like idiots. There's a couple over here watching porn or doing whatever, throwing chairs, knocking each other. And I'm like, these guys, I like to horseplay and have fun, but this is just ridiculous. And I'm sitting there trying to just completely ignore it. And this guy comes up to me. He's like, why don't you just suck my dick? And I'm like, all right. And I just punched him right in the dick. And that was the end of it.
Sounds appropriate to me.
I don't know. There was a few other instances where guys were picking on me. I'd throw my pliers at them or something, and generally you can just verbally belittle them now, and they're just crushed. So,
Yeah. Is being part of a local union beneficial to you and your coworkers?
You mean like me being beneficial to them?
No, is the union beneficial to you?
Yes, I do believe that. They keep the wages pretty good. More importantly, they keep a pension, the annuity, the vacations. There's other things. They keep an apprenticeship. You don't have to pay to learn a job. It's really important because, you know, you go to college and you pay all this money and you go out there and you're making pennies, man. You know, trades are probably our most beneficial. And I told this to my daughter, so you don't have to be an ironworker. Go be an electrician or a carpenter. I mean, we're hurting for them all over the place. People can't do it or won't do it or they're scared. I don't know what the deal is, but you will be trained. And just because you don't know one thing, you might be better at something else. I mean, there's a spot for you out there, and you don't have to pay.
Yeah, especially if if she falls in your footsteps because she likes to work with her hands or likes to accomplish something, that would be a good spot.
Yeah, you gotta like it.
Is there anything else about your working life you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think at a certain point in time, I tried to be a man. You know what I mean? And for women out there, you know, you try to like disappear in them. You know, you try to hide the fact that you're on your period or your cramps hurt you or you're a little bit more emotional. And these are things that we deal with. But I think now it's getting a little more to where they can accept you as a woman out there. And I don't have to ditch my femininity. You know, I don't have to pretend that, you know, I can even look like this and people think I'm a dyke or something, but I'm really not. You don't have to ditch who you are to do your job.
To do your job. And you don't, yeah, that's good. Yeah, very good. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I really liked this. This was good. Thank you so much.
Awesome.